Kristyn Clarke here with PopCultureMadness.com. We are in the backstage lounge at Voodoo Experience, and I am here with the features. Can you guys introduce yourself to our site visitors, please?
Hey, I'm Matt.
Rollum.
Great. Well, thank you so much for sitting down to talk with me for a few minutes. And, how are you enjoying Voodoo Experience so far?
It's been good so far. We got in yesterday and we came out last night and kind of hung out for a little bit, and then got up we got to sleep in a little bit today and came over and ate, and I don't know, it's been nice. It's been good. Yeah.
Same. Yeah, I'll echo exactly what he said.
Great. So, what can we be expecting from your performance?
Well, we've got 3 albums, and we'll probably be playing a little bit off of each of those, probably most of the newer record, though, and yeah, it's going to be about an hour long, so there'll be quite a bit of it because our songs tend to be pretty short, so we can cram a lot of those songs into an hour set. And, yeah, hopefully the sun stays out because it's cool. And when we played earlier, like a little, short radio thing, it was pretty hard on hands. My nose was, running and all that stuff. So, I don't know. It should be good. It'll be fun, yeah.
Good. So, do you guys have a preference between playing these larger festivals like Voodoo or smaller club dates? I'm sure it's a different animal, each one.
Honestly, I would gravitate towards smaller club shows. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that I think most bands operate better with that because there's more of an audience connection with it, and it usually sounds better.
Yeah, there's definitely more of an intimacy with smaller shows. I would choose that hands down over any sort of festival show or really large show. It's just harder to translate, I feel like.
Absolutely, I'm sure. I've heard that it's the difference of feel and the energy in the room between having everybody right up in your face and then here everybody's 100 feet out somewhere. So. So what is next for you guys after Voodoo? I hear there's some work on a new album.
Yeah, we've finished another record, and it'll be coming out sometime in the beginning of next year. And yeah, we're excited about that. And along with that will come a lot more touring. So that's really all we have planned, other than just the sort of the must-do stuff, which is get home and figure out album artwork and video ideas, or that kind of stuff.
So is everything done? So is the album completed?
As far as the music goes, we're finishing up the mixes right now. We'll have it mastered, and we just got to get the artwork done. So, yeah, it's getting there. Hopefully, we should have it done by December. So.
Oh, nice. So, have you guys changed anything? Did you experiment with anything new in the studio with the recording of this album or anything?
I feel like we weren't quite as precious with overthinking. Probably is the best way to put it. We didn't really overthink much stuff as much as we tended to in the past.
I think a lot of that too, we went into the studio with looser arrangements this time around compared to what we have in the past. And traditionally, most of the songs we'd played out live for an extended amount of time. And I honestly I'm not sure if we played any of these songs out live before we recorded them, now that I'm thinking about it. So that's probably the first time we did that. And
they were all written really quick.
Yeah, and some of the arrangements were done, we had loose ideas, but it would be a case of getting in the studio, setting up, having sounds, and then sort of like making some last-minute arrangement ideas.
And then playing through the song and that being the take. Yeah. So it was sort of like there wasn't any second guessing. It was like, okay, we got an idea, record it, sounds good, leave it, move along, and then we just move to the next song. And I guess every song on the record was sort of approached in that way. So that's quite a bit different from how we've worked in the past, which a lot of the stuff in the past tended to be more a lot of trial and error based on just playing it out live, And we would play songs out live for a year before they would get recorded. So this one's quite a bit different in that sense. And there's a lot more space. It's a little more minimal when it comes to the arrangements. So
you guys are working with it's Kings of Leon's imprint label, correct?
We did the last 2 records, yeah.
Not so sure about this new one. We haven't really quite figured that out yet. But yeah, that gets into like really boring music industry talk, you know. So yeah, it's.
Well, that's definitely a world of its own now. Definitely, I mean, I'm sure the artists can have a bit more creative freedom without kind of dealing with all that industry stuff and the pressure that comes with that as well.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, that's the thing. That's the beauty of it, is like we are left to our own devices with all of that, you know. And I mean, we're honestly the only critics we kind of have to deal with are ourselves, I guess, you know. So that's kind of nice, you know.
So, you know, starting out in Tennessee is like such a birthplace of so much music. What was the scene like for you guys starting out there?
You know, there's always been a lot of really good rock bands in the area, but when we started out, started getting outside of Nashville, when we were doing that early on, there was a lot of resistance, I felt like, toward Nashville. Now it's completely different, and honestly, a lot of that I feel like it has to do with the Kings of Leon and them sort of breaking through and bringing a lot of attention to the area. But 10 years ago, there was no attention given to Nashville whatsoever. You know, and it was you were either from L.A. or New York, and there were bands from Nashville or that area that were actually moving to one of those two places just to try to get some attention.
Same thing happened in Philadelphia. Like,
yeah.
A lot of bands like in Philadelphia that's, you know, there's so much going on there. Yet it remains completely just under the radar.
Yeah, and Nashville's been that way. Or it was that way. And like anytime we would do an interview, you know, 10 years ago, it was a big surprise that a rock band was out of Nashville, and. Yeah, there was always this sort of like stigma, or like, you know, the shadow over Nashville. Like country music is like what it produces, and there was always, you know, a really good rock scene. So it's nice that it's finally starting to get some attention, because I feel like the city deserves that because of all the great bands. But you know, that's what it was like when we started out. It was completely different.
Sure. So, you know, being that you guys have been, you know, in the music game for a while now, do either one of you have a pivotal moment that happened to you that made you decide you wanted to pursue music for a career?
For me, like, I grew up around it because my dad always played and stuff, and it was just more like, I remember in 7th grade seeing his guitar and amp and just being like, okay, well, that might be fun to pick up or whatever. And I'd always like music or whatever, but I just remember like picking that up and it just becoming this absolute obsession, where that's like all I did from that moment on. So it was kind of like, I don't know, I guess like started doing it. And I think at that age too, like a lot of kids are on this weird cusp of like, you play sports maybe, but you're not necessarily like really good at sports, you know, and music just ends up kind of like taking over a little bit, you know, and you meet friends that way and start playing, and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a similar thing to me. It's just growing up and really loving music and wanting something to do with it. I started out playing the banjo and finally got a guitar when I was like 13. Roger, who's the bass player in the band, lived right down the street from me, and he got a guitar the same year. So there's like a couple of friends at school that wanted to be in a band, and we were those guys, you know, that wore our Led Zeppelin t-shirts to school every day, and like, you know, that's what we wanted to do. We would spend our time in middle school and high school trying to learn how to play guitar or drums and bass, and eventually, like, you know, worked up a few covers and played a talent show, and, you know, that was our first taste of like, okay, we can actually do this, and we want to do this. So that's kind of how it starts. I mean, it started with us. It was like, you know, we just really liked music and wanted something to do with it. So.
It's weird thinking about it, though, because I have thought about that, because, you know, and I'm sure you're in the same boat. It's like you have, like, friends that play, and then they just kind of quit. And maybe they were smarter than we were, just actually decided to take education seriously. I don't know, but, like, yeah, it is weird thinking about people that actually decide to make, like, sacrifices in life to play music and spend that much time with it. So, yeah, I don't know what the answer is with that. Maybe we're idiots. And that's just what, you know, yeah.
So do you remember the first CD you purchased with your own money?
I remember the first cassette I purchased. It was DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince. He's the DJ, I'm the rapper.
Yeah, the first cassette I ever purchased with my own money was it was Motley Crue's Theater of Pain. Yeah.
So what's the most surprising influence we'd find?
I don't know. I mean,
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, we all listen to so much stuff, you know.
yeah, you know,
You can name a band, and there's a good chance that like one of us is into it.
yeah.
you
I
know?
mean, honestly, I like my first concert was Huey Lewis and the News. Yeah, and I heard I Want a New Drug the other day on the radio, and like hearing that reminded me how good Huey Lewis and the News was. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he's got so many like really, really good songs, and I embrace that type of thing, especially if I grew up with it, which is like John Mellencamp, Huey Lewis and the News, Van Halen, all that stuff during that period is what I listened to, so I still really like it a lot. I feel like I like it more now than I probably did then, so yeah.
I mean, speaking for a minute about the days of like cassette tapes and things like that, I mean, I'm sure you guys have witnessed this uprise of social media and the way that we share music and artists are able to do promotion and things for themselves. How do you feel about that uprise?
I think the only thing I'll say about it is that it has devalued music, and that's odd to me. And the thing I've noticed about it though is that LPs are making a pretty fair return, and I think that's the reason for it, is that with a digital file you don't have a tangibility to it, and a lot of kids grow up without that, and vinyl is about as far removed as you can possibly get from that. So I don't know, maybe it's one of those cases of there being like some sort of, like, say digital files happen, then the opposite reaction's vinyl, and people start gravitating towards that, so it could be a cause and effect situation with it. I'm not sure. Yeah, and you're exactly right. It's totally up in the air right now, and we'll see where it goes, but I'm not opposed to it, to digital things. That's not it, but personally I gravitate towards LPs and things like that,
Yeah, I feel it's a really strange thing. I'm not sure how I feel about it. I think it has devalued music, art in general. I feel like it's devalued because it's just, I don't know, it's a different thing.
And it was a big deal too. When we were kids, there would be like midnight sales, and I remember bands I liked, like say Tower Records, would have a midnight sale on Monday night, and you'd go there with your friends and like wait out for that thing to be released, and you'd like get the CD or cassette or whatever it was, and it would be this like experience, and like on the way home you'd listen to it, and you'd get home and you'd read through the lyric book, and that still exists, but it's more on like a niche level at this point compared to what it was then,
And yeah, to me it's really sad, like that. Not that things, it's different, definitely a different thing. The experience of a midnight sale, or having to wait to growing up in a small town like we did, you had to go to the city that had a sound shop in it to purchase a record. So instead of just like getting this instant thing, it was like the anticipation of when am I going to make it to Cookville so I can go to the sound shop and get the new Huey Lewis and the News record, and that all of that is part of that experience that I really miss. And I don't know, it was much different, and I kind of prefer the way it was.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I could agree with you there. So what is, other than finishing up the new album and more touring coming up next year, I'm sure, is there anything else on the horizon for after Voodoo? Any plans for the holiday season?
We got a Halloween show in Nashville, which will be fun, and then we'll end up doing artwork and, trying to get all the loose ends tied for the record to be released, and that's about it. Hanging out at home, family. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big part of it. I think like post touring is just decompression sometimes, and everyone just kind of getting back home and relaxing. We're all looking forward to that.
Yeah, we've been touring for I think most of this year, like about 8 months out of the last 12. So it's been pretty long.
Well, I want to thank you guys so much for taking a few minutes out to speak with me. Is there any comments you'd like to share with our site audience?
Oh, thanks for doing the interview.
Thank you.